All right. I will begin by so basically before we go into all the questions and stuff, I want to just kind of address the community and kind of paint a picture and tell a story of sort of what has gotten us to this point today. Why are we now a part of Rev, or back as a part of Rev, or I'm back as a part of Rev. So I think most of you guys here, maybe with the exception of a few, have a good idea of kind of, or have seen me around previously in the Rev community. So I initially joined Rev in 2020, not long after the token launched. So token launched in September. I joined just kind of at the beginning of October. Back then, F1 Delta Time was the core game. We all know kind of what happened. So then through 2021, a lot of exciting things happened. You know, the bull market was in full swing. All the projects were flying. Excuse me, I need to sneeze. All the projects were in full swing. But with kind of several events that happened throughout the... Sorry, is the music too loud? I just turned it off. There you go. It's better this way. Then throughout kind of 2021, sorry, there are a lot of events that kind of happened over that year. And ultimately I left Rev in kind of late 2021 to focus on and kind of pursue Torque Squad and this vision for Motiverse. So that started around somewhere in kind of August, September. Sort of the early ideas were coming July, August, and then it wasn't really put into full swing until September 2021. And that was built, over the subsequent few months. Pulled in some of the kind of the way I approached it was to pull in sort of top of class teams, such as from our design team with Pangea. They're very experienced in F1. They do a lot of branding for the likes of Mercedes, for Red Bull, and for Williams, some of the other teams. We brought in a top tier artist who, is now currently working for Halo, and has a lot of experience working in games and stuff like that. We did an AMA with him. So you guys can go check that out. And we brought on some other teams that we thought would make a lot of sense in kind of developing, our vision for Torque Squad and Motiverse at the time. Ultimately, we launched, and it was a pretty turbulent time, I'll say, in 2022, early 2022, with some of the things that were happening in the world. And then eventually, by the time we'd let some of the initial kind of events pass a little bit, or some of the initial kind of impacts of the events pass, we then launched the sale around April, which wasn't an ideal time. It launched, in terms of how we, our smart contract, the site, the mint site, everything kind of went as we had hoped. But the timing around that, the affiliation with Rev at the time, we lost a lot of kind of Rev OGs, because of some of the fallout that had kind of come with F1 Delta Time, which was really unfortunate, because I think up until then we had a very strong community. We had a lot of the OGs. We had guys I'd been quite friendly with in the F1 Delta Time community, and being part of that growth and part of that community. So that obviously wasn't perfect, but we still managed to do all right. And we eventually minted the rest of the supply into the DAO, something I want to speak about later. And through post mint, we had 100%, 100% had the intention of pursuing everything that we had planned on the roadmap. So everything was going according to kind of how we sort of expected, or how we planned, how we wanted. We had good funds to start developing some of the experiences and stuff. We had, up until that point, we already brought a number of people to a number of different races. We had the Australian Grand Prix, where we brought, I think, upwards of 25, close to 30 people to the actual race. Some of you here actually went to, I see Jesser and Parab, both, you guys went to the Indy 500, which from all the photos I've seen looked like an incredible event. So I was very jealous not to have attended. But we brought 10 people to the Indy 500. They had the chance to meet Juan Pablo Montoya, go onto pit road, and spend the day at the McLaren Hospitality. We then had the event in Silverstone in the middle of the year, where we had another 15 to 20 guests, along with REVV. And that's kind of the initial sort of where we started to kind of sort of cross promote a little bit more. We also had the REVV racing car, so we did that. And then at the end of the year, we brought a number of people to Phillip Island MotoGP race, which Animoca was the title sponsor for. So that was all cool. So that was kind of one big roadmap item ticked off the list. And obviously for this year, in 2023, we want to be bringing more of those events. Now, the market dip in the middle of last year, as you guys all experienced, really changed a lot in terms of the development. Not that we lost a ton of funds or anything like that. It wasn't anything like that. It was more to do with the fact that there was new management at Animoca, and there was, the focus on being kind of more budget conscious was very kind of front of mind at the time. Good governance was something that was really evident, given everything that, the fallout of FTX and all that. It was becoming more apparent that, not that it wasn't before, but budget management, good governance, and all that was really a focus. So at the time, we were still kind of very set on making the website that we had described, the sandbox experience that we had begun, the fashion and merch line, sending people to the events. We had plans to use the DAO, keys and garages and all that sort of stuff. So there was a lot in the pipeline that we wanted to build. So I'll come back to all that in a minute. Now, I want to kind of address the whole REVV side of things. In around September, I spoke to the team at REVV, and they told me that there was someone new coming to the company. It's all right. New people come to the company all the time. That's fine. But who this person was brought in to basically head up and be in charge of the entire REVV ecosystem. Which I think for some of you here who have been a part of REVV will probably understand that that's someone that we've needed for a long time, and someone to really kind of wrap his hands around the whole ecosystem, and push it forward, in a very structured but very kind of organized way, if you will. So I don't think a lot of you guys actually know this yet, and I don't think he's been publicly introduced. But I did speak to him last night, and he did say I was okay to tell you guys his name, who he is, some of his background. And this guy is someone named Will Griffiths. And Will is ex-Codemasters. And then, if you guys know racing games and the racing game industry, you guys know that EA eventually bought Codemasters. And he headed up strategy. Excuse me. voice breaking a little bit. He headed up strategy for them in certain areas of the business. So very experienced at building games in a racing ecosystem. And so for those of you who don't or who aren't familiar with Codemasters, they did the Dirt Rally series, they did the Grid Racing series, the official F1 games, previously Toka Race Driver. Maybe that's the title that would be kind of more more nostalgic. Maybe a title that you guys will remember, and also Colin McRae Rally. So a studio that is, no, I'm not calling you old. Sorry. Good questions. Hudson asked, "What's his impression Wow, can't speak. What's his initial impression of Rev Racing?" And don't lie. Well, actually, I'm going to be doing an AMA with him in the next couple of weeks to introduce him to the whole Rev ecosystem and to introduce you to him, and him to you guys. So we're going to fully deep dive a lot of those questions, and you guys can ask some of those questions then. But make sure you guys attend, because that one will be really interesting. It's a good chance for him to say hi, tell you guys a bit more about his background, and why he was brought in to head up Rev, and kind of what his vision is for the future. Thank you. I've just been brought a glass of water. Very nice. Stay hydrated, guys. It's very important. Tiny Digital Factory. Yeah, so Tiny Digital Factory is the studio that makes Rev Racing. They did launch their own NFT game, but we're still friendly with them. We still talk to them. They still help build Rev Racing. But a lot of those I'll leave for you to ask Will about, because he has a much stronger grasp on everything. All right, moving on. Parab, send us through your CV. All right. So just trying to look at my notes to see where I am. Will. Okay. Cool. So yeah, so with him coming on board, we we spent a lot of time discussing what the plans are for Torque Squad. Kind of where what we had done to date, where we wanted to take the project, and kind of the vision of a lot of the project. Now at the same time, when I was having these discussions with Will, which was around kind of September, October, Rev and Animoca went out and bought 3 game studios. Not all at the same time, but that's kind of when it started. Grease Monkey Games, Eden Games, We Play Media, and obviously, we had the firepower of Blowfish, who were part of the ecosystem already, but let's call them part of the Rev ecosystem, or at least a part of them. It's part of the Rev ecosystem. And for those of you who don't know, Grease Monkey are the team behind Torque Drift Games, or the Torque Drift Games, I should say. They did Torque Burnout, then eventually built a drifting game called Torque Drift, partnered with Formula Drift. I've said drift quite a few times there, but what's super interesting is that, it's not only their games that are great, they're really fun, they're high quality, the graphics are great, but some of their tech and development layers and the kind of the team there, based in Melbourne. And what's super interesting, sorry, I already said that. Torque Drift 2 is currently in development, and it looks amazing. We've seen some snippets, some renders, some images, some early kind of not strictly gameplay, but kind of gameplay mechanics, and a few things around that, which is kind of as AAA looking as it gets, to be honest. It's built in Unreal Engine 5, and I can't wait to play it. so so that's Grease Monkey. Eden Games. I mean, for those of you who have played racing games, probably know Eden Games pretty well, or at least know their games. They did the old Test Drive Unlimited game. They did Gear Club, and some of the old Need for Speeds as well. And recently, over the last few years, they've been in charge of the F1 mobile game. And most recently, in December, they launched Smurf Carts, which is a lot of fun. It's currently on Switch, I believe. That's where I played it. And I know they're porting it over to other consoles. But go check it out. Smurf Carts is a lot of fun. They are currently developing some titles for Rev, which unfortunately I can't speak to those just yet. But from kind of initial plans and planning, and it should be pretty exciting. But again, I don't want to talk too much about that. Why can't speak? Why can't speak? And this is okay. This is a big one, right? A lot of what we're doing, and game development and design and stuff like that in general, it takes, firstly, a lot of time, but also a lot of money, a lot of resource, and goes through, especially now with new management and the new kind of company structure within Animoca. It takes a lot of there's a lot of steps to approval, right? A lot of steps to approval to then begin building a game. So that's kind of the main reason we haven't said anything, is we want to make sure that the vision is correct, that the game is in line with some of our goals within the wider organization. So a lot of that information just can't be openly shared yet. It's like, me telling you leak it. I can't leak it, man. It's like me leaking the iPhone 15 or whatever in March when they're coming out in September. I actually don't know that, but I'm speculating. All right. So finally, there's also We Play Media. And they're a company, pretty sure based in the US, based in Phoenix, who are kind of most well known for their mobile game, MotoGP Championship Quest. So they're kind of the official MotoGP mobile game. And they're going to be integrated into Rev eventually, as well as building new experiences on top. Not on top of the mobile game, but separate experiences. So another kind of powerhouse of games development. And these are just the game studios we bought, right? We also have, like Parab mentioned, Tiny Digital Factory building Rev Racing. But we also have MotoGP Ignition, with the manager game release imminent, I'd say. I don't think we have a release date yet. But from what I've seen, soon, TM. But from what I've seen, it is looking very promising. Let's say it looks like a proper game. It plays really well. Graphics are cool. And as a Web3 blockchain game, I think it's going to be quite impressive. So, and there's also Formula E, right? Which, again, I don't know the exact timing for, but the release of which should be coming #soon. All right, now the reason I don't want to comparably speaking, is Rev Racing a proper game? I mean, you guys have just answered the questions, right? I mean, when I say MotoGP Manager is a proper game, I mean, if you guys have played stuff like Motorsport Manager, and some of those games, that's kind of where MotoGP Manager will be sort of sitting in that kind of realm. It's not. I mean, it's not. You know, you guys have seen. You guys have seen. What is it? The F1 Manager game that came out in 2022. That one was crazy, right? That one's like super budget, like crazy, crazy, crazy. So it's obviously not there, but never say never. But where it's starting, I think it's starting from a very, very, very good point. Tell me Torque Squad gets priority in track and land sales, and I can breathe easy. That's something that we're pushing for, and something that we've definitely spoken about. So, let me keep going, and we'll kind of get to that. So, the reason I've kind of discussed all the game studios and kind of where Rev is at the moment is because in January, so like the first week of January, literally like right after New Year's, all of us that I just mentioned, all the game studios, all the kind of the leadership team of Rev, we went to London and we locked ourselves in a boardroom in the Animoca office in London for 5 days, 9 to 5, pretty much every day. Robbie Young was there, CEO of Animoca. We had some other kind of key execs that were there. This workshop was led by Will. We had some of the head of tokenomics. We had head of game design from Animoca, all there in this room. There was about 15 of us, maybe. And we're all sat in this room, right? So it did eventually get a little stuffy. But hey, we sat down for 5 days and really knuckled down. And it was the first time kind of all of us really came together. A lot of us had kind of met at the Phillip Island event, but this was the first time where we all really came together, sat in a room, locked ourselves in, and discussed how we're going to grow the Rev ecosystem. And it was there where we kind of discussed the future of Torque Squad, and Torque Squad being kind of the PFP of the Rev ecosystem. And where we started to discuss how we would integrate Torque Squad into all the existing and the future games of the ecosystem, whether that's whitelisting or allow listing, don't cancel me, or, you know, fully integrating into games as playable characters, and stuff like that. So there's a lot of ideas being thrown around. There's a lot of kind of potential for collaboration being thrown around. And now it's really good just kind of trying to hone in on what is the lowest hanging fruit. How can we get some of these shipped out quickly? And obviously allow listing being an obvious one, and stuff like that. So this is the opportunity that presents itself. And a reason why Torque Squad is now part of Rev. The potential of Torque Squad and you know, our initial vision of Motiverse, growing, you know, very much kind of building as a silo, right? And building a site and building a game, whether that's a mini game, to eventually building what we wanted to do as a metaverse. A lot of that was very kind of, I'd say budget and resource dependent. But for us to do that and to build around our own vision was probably somewhat limited in scope. So with Rev, with all its games, all its studios, and, you know, not to mention that it's the biggest, you know, it's the title sponsor of, you know, several MotoGP races, right? So we have that audience and that to tap into. The potential there is like infinitely greater, right? So, all right. So going back I think Parab's typing a question, just furiously smacking those keys. I'm ready. What is it? Maybe I'm not ready. All right, I'll keep going. Do those sponsorships bring in anything other than the events we attend? Well, I mean, it does a number of things, right? It obviously has the, people are able to attend events, but also it's a chance for us to showcase our games, showcase our brands, and kind of build a relationship with a global brand that hopefully one day our games are synonymous with. So, it's like anything, right? Why does Rolex sponsor F1? Oh yeah. Do we actually go and show those games to people? Oh yeah, 100%. We have, at least this year, there are a number of, actually in Phillip Island, we had the MotoGP manager, like the early gameplay footage playing on the screens in the hospitality and stuff like that. I don't know where else, but definitely in the hospitality. And that's kind of where it came up. Like it was like one of those sponsor reels, and it came up like Animoca brands. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely opportunity at these events and stuff to showcase a lot of this to people, to potential kind of VIPs and stuff like that. The Muffin Man, no, we haven't spoken about keys yet, but I will get to that. I think so, Pistol Pete. I think the integration definitely feels very exciting, and I'll get to that. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Sponsorship isn't cheap. But there's a number of layers to sponsoring it, right? And I can't speak to the kind of executive decision that was made. But I think that now moving forward, at least this year, with some kind of big core games and stuff coming out, MotoGP Manager, and stuff like that, there's an opportunity to kind of really showcase these as, at a lot of these events. So any more questions before I continue with my story? It's kind of a bedtime story for you guys, right? It's like 9:30 in the East Coast. Yep. All right. Let me continue then. So, all right. So let's go back to kind of roadmap stuff and stuff that we had initially wanted to do. So the first one being the Motiverse Hub website that we had showcased the very early kind of concept for. So when I met with Will, if anyone missed me talking about Will, I don't know if the Muffin Man heard, but he's now heading up Rev, Xcode Masters, EA Games. So that's, when I say Will, that's who I'm talking about. So we really spent a lot of time riffing on like a lot of the stuff that we had done, including the website, and the website being quite a important piece of that puzzle, because that was how we wanted to kind of showcase the initial state of the Motiverse, if you will. And we spent a large number of calls and meetings talking about the hub, showed him my prototype, and really expanded on a lot of the ideas that we had come up with in terms of, the reasoning behind building something like that, and some of the interactions, the micro interactions within the website that we wanted to build. And we realized that, the potential that something like that website would have, right? But not just for Torque Squad, not as a little silo, but for in his mind, the entire Rev ecosystem. And like I mentioned, at the same time, all these game studios and relationships, came on board with Rev. So we decided to pivot the development of the site, to expand on it with the whole ecosystem in mind. So that is something that's still being worked on, and currently being worked on. But again, I'll let Will speak more about that in his AMA. Now, that's the website. The sandbox experience is kind of much of the same story. And actually, the structure of the land, the whole land itself, and all the bits, have already been built. That yacht that we said we would have in like the Monaco-esque kind of harbor. Yes, the blue Minecraft game thing. The yacht, we have the street circuit, we have an underground garage, we have a Torque Squad gallery, we have vertical layers, we have a beach club, we have like little quests, we have the kind of that Torque Squad paddock image where you kind of beam into we have all that. We have our tram that's in there. So all the structure of the land is actually fully built. But again, looking at that, we realize that building an experience that showcases all of Rev, all the games, all the properties would have a much bigger impact than just, having let's say a smaller experience with the Torque Squad running around. Still, we're going to have Torque Squad running around because, hopefully, you guys all run around in the sandbox with your avatars again, which is something I'll touch on. But really, Rev through its, entire social network has over, collectively 700,000 followers. It has a fully liquid token, very mature token. At that, it's in terms of Web3, blockchain, the crypto space as it is today. It's where are we now? A 2.5-year-old token is pretty mature. 50,000 holders across all chains. Regardless of kind of what the price action has done in those last 2.5 years, that's kind of not the focus. But anyway, let's go back to sandbox stuff. I said avatars. The avatars have all been made and generated, and they're actually going through testing to make sure that they work properly in the sandbox before taking it to the sandbox team. Sandbox, which is another Animoca subsidiary, and getting them integrated into the game so that you guys can, use your avatars, your beloved Torquies, and run around in whatever experience you choose. Hall of Fame avatars included. Possibly. The Hall of Fame avatars, we were thinking, were going to be like, what do you call them? NPCs, maybe. As like, hey, look at us. But yeah, that's something the Hall of Fame ones specifically is something that we're still discussing. Parab, how do you become Hall of Fame? I think you can post all your videos from the Indy 500. All those legendary videos from the Indy 500. All right, so that is Sandbox. Now looking at the I mean, I don't know if someone like Juan Pablo Montoya is going to be running around as his avatar in the sandbox. Maybe we can get him to jump on the sandbox. But again, specifically the Hall of Fame ones, we will get to those. All right. It'd be cool. I mean, it'd be cool. It'd be cool to run around with Juan Pablo. It'd be cool to run around with Joey. You're right. You're right, the Muffin Man. You're right. All right. Now, fashion and merch. Something that we have been discussing for a long time. And initially wanted to release quite shortly after the initial launch of Torque Squad. But again, for one reason or another, a lot of that had to get slightly delayed. And the thing is, they're all made. They're all already made and sitting in a warehouse ready to ship and sell. But again, going back to the same theme, the time we wanted to launch, September, through to kind of the end of last year, we were deep in discussions with Will and team, right? The consensus there was, let's do the sale properly, with the support of Rev, and make a lot of noise about it. So right now we're forming a plan on how we're actually going to sell this merch for it to make sense and for it to kind of really locking in the way we do that sale. Kavote. I see you've joined. Welcome. All right, now keys and garages, the Muffin Man. We're gonna touch on those now. So, all right, so this one's a little bit more tricky because we want to be able to give you guys as much utility as possible with these items. Again, everything's made and ready to go. All the artwork's done. Contract's ready. No, Parab, this is something else. So again, when this all came together, right? Grease Monkey had ideas for what they wanted to build. Eden Games had ideas for what they wanted to build. The Rev team had ideas for what they wanted to build. And all of them featured a garage. Ultimately, kind of all of them had a garage concept to some extent. And all these garage concepts were kind of same, but different. So at that point, we were like, all right, let's, and including us, right? So there's at least 4 or 5 teams there that wanted to build a garage. So at that point, we thought, all right, let's bring our heads together to do something that's kind of interoperable and something that works for all the games and experiences, rather than everyone coming up with their own concept, all of it working slightly differently. You guys will then jump on and ask, hey, how come I can't use my something in the Grease Monkey experience? Or how come I can't use my thing in the Eden experience? Or can't use it in the Torque Squad experience? Or whatever, right? So we thought, okay, how can we make this all work? And how can we make this an experience that makes sense for everyone? So I know you guys are probably disappointed that, you know, and I'm disappointed that we haven't shipped those yet. But, you know, we're really trying to come up with a proper plan now with all of this structure in place to have it make sense across everything. So that's where that sits. I love seeing those little typing things. It's great. Kavote, I know you're part of the Rev community as well. So it's something I'm kind of getting to the end of my story. So I'm gonna just kind of wrap up, and I'm gonna summarize a lot of the things I've just talked about. I think you missed the first part of the discussion where I talked about kind of the new state of Rev. Oh man, I'm really anticipating these questions. All right, you know what? I'm just gonna summarize, then I'm gonna get to the questions, and you guys can fire away. So basically, oh yeah. So the question is it fair to say that delay is a good thing with the keys because the keys will have more utility than originally planned? 100%. Initially we thought, all right, with interactive garages, that's cool. That kind of, leads into like an early stage of kind of what we want to build in the future. But I think now there's actually a lot more that can happen, a lot more that can be done. I've seen some of the experience that these guys are building, and they really know what they're doing. I don't know if you guys know the difference between kind of Unity and Unreal engines, but like it's all built in different engines, but like somehow we're gonna make it work. And it's all gonna some of the stuff I've seen is just it's crazy, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. And it's something that I'm so desperate to tell you guys all about it, and I really want to spill the beans and spill the tea, but I can't. I really can't. Is it local or web based? I think it's gonna be both. I don't know. That's a question I don't actually know. I think at some point when you get to, yeah, okay. That's what I was just going to say. Like at some point it's going to get to like, there's just limits of WebGL, right? And playing games on a browser, like you're going to end up as a mini clip otherwise, right? So I don't know if they can make it work for web, or if it's going to be something that, they'll end up having a separate launcher or whatever. But yeah, web does have its limitations, right? That's true. That's true. Most people don't know how to run a primary GPU on WebGL. I had to figure that out in the beginning as well. Good question, Paro. Needs an update. Didn't actually fire Victor, though. That's the thing. He was at the kind of stage where he wanted to try and pursue other things. I don't know if any of you have been in touch with him. I still speak to him regularly. I mean, like we're still friends. We're still good buddies, and we still talk fairly often. I don't know if you guys have. But yeah, he's been around. He's still in the Web3 space. Still running around as a very bored ape. When website update, yeah, that definitely needs to happen. And something that's very high on my to-do list, because that has been stuck for a while. Interested in how multiplayer is going to be monitored, because financial value will be involved. Multiplayer in terms of which game? All of them? Or any of them? All of them. Again, maybe that's a question for Will, because while I talk about a lot of the games, and while you see me yapping on, some of these bigger decisions I don't really know. You want to racing for pink slips. All right, I'm just gonna summarize that long story, mainly for Kavote's purposes, I'd say, because you didn't quite get to hear a lot of that, and I guess some of you guys didn't hear the beginning. So to end that really long story, basically what it boils down to is the 2022 market really didn't help our development. However, with a new head of Rev on board, Will Griffiths, Kavote, for your benefit, ex Codemasters and EA, now brought in to lead and head up the whole Rev ecosystem, as well as kind of all the game studios, Grease Monkey, Eden, We Play, Blowfish, even Tiny Digital. We have a unique opportunity here with Torque Squad to be part of a massive ecosystem of motorsport experiences and games that range from MotoGP to Formula E to our own unique titles to Formula Drift to everything that Eden Games are going to be building as well. So, and then not to mention Rev is, and something that I think a lot of people forget is Rev is core to the Animoca ecosystem, right? Regardless of some of the events that have transpired over the last 24, 36 months. Rev is core to the Animoca ecosystem. There's a lot of firepower now being put behind it. And look, with TS, I know certain things have not gone to plan. And we haven't been able to kick some of the goals that we wanted to. We kicked a few big ones, but there is a lot that we missed, right? And for that, I'll put my hand up. I'm the first to put my hand up and say, look, it's I'll take responsibility. I'll be held accountable for it, 100%. I'm not gonna go and try and push the blame to someone else or make these crazy excuses. But there are things that have hindered us. And this project is my blood, sweat, and tears, right? Like this is my baby. And I'm not, I'm not just going to rug and run, right? It's not possible. You guys know me. You guys, like, I'm a very, let's say, a public figure. And Animoca is not going to let me rug and run, right? Like, what's going to happen? They're going to sue me, right? Rug and walk. It's not possible, right? So, FUD, all these words have been thrown around into no, I think there is the Muffin Man, there is a desire for TS to be the PFP of the ecosystem, 100%. I definitely think that. I don't think we're just being squeezed in to meet the minimum requirements. I obviously don't think people are all of a sudden going to be I don't think they're going to be making games that are like just Torque Squad, right? Because they obviously need to build games that make sense for kind of wider purpose as well. But Torque Squad's function within the Rev community, within the games, within the ecosystem, will be very prominent. Big things are coming. Is that okay? I'm not going to ask the question. Let me just going down my notes. And yeah, like I said, I want to be held accountable for a lot of this. And I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, which I know I've fallen victim to over the last 12 months for one reason or another. But look, I kind of going back to this thing with Rev, man, I really think this move to Rev, with everything they've now got on the table, everything that they've got moving forward, the vision, which there will be an AMA with Will. You guys can ask him all the questions you want about the vision. I really think the vision is a strong one, and one that will give you guys, as holders of TS, not just TS, but all the other projects as well, a lot of cool new experiences and ways to experience Web3 and motorsport. So, look, Rev and Animoca ultimately have infinitely more resources and potential to grow. So with Torque Squad being kind of the PFP of the Rev ecosystem, right? It gives us the same potential moving forward. If I didn't think it was an exciting move, I left Rev in the first place for a number of different reasons. But if I didn't think this was an exciting move, I wouldn't have gone back. And I wouldn't have brought Torque Squad with it. So yeah, that's my story. It's taken almost an hour, but if you guys have more questions, I'm happy to answer some of them. I have been sent a number of questions from Chelsea Go, which I'll try to also touch on. If not, I might have to end up typing it out. With all the FTX stuff going down, are companies still letting you guys sponsor and do stuff? Yeah. I mean, certain companies are more wary. I don't think we're all of a sudden going to have Animoca or Rev on the side of a Mercedes F1 car very soon, right? Like stuff like that. I don't think. Good night, Lucas. See you, mate. Keep riding. Like stuff like Mercedes F1 and stuff, obviously not going to happen. F1 still partnered with crypto.com. But I think a lot of organizations, a lot of teams, a lot of institutions and stuff like that, and they're gonna do their due diligence a lot tighter, right? Any chance Rev wants a karting team built in the sandbox added to their portfolio? Great question, Hudson. Would love to see the updates to that, by the way. For those of you guys that don't really know or do know, Hudson's building a sandbox experience, a karting sandbox experience that looks freaking awesome, right? Like looks like some of the tracks that I used to race at in go-karts. Like it's great. DeMuffin Man, important question. Timeline. Animoca's picking up this year. Quid is launching their own mint to play project starting next week on the sandbox. They've got an entire game built out. Now it's 2023, a realistic expectation for major development of TS. So again, development's going to happen in phases. Appreciate it, Lucas. Take care. Development's going to happen in stages, right? So not all of the experiences, not all the games within Rev, within the different studios are going to be built out, but it's going to be done piecemeal, right? So it's not going to be a fully fledged game from day one, but maybe there's, like I said, like maybe something like a garage experience or no, we're not holding back from releasing until the next bull run. Definitely not. There's stuff coming up periodically throughout this year, for sure, that I know of. And yeah, timeline, it's really hard to say. It's like, I know with Grease Monkey, there's certain experiences that they're building before the game. With Eden Games, I believe they're building a number of different experiences first. So it's like, you can't expect a fully fledged AAA racing title to be built in 6 months. Animoca completed the acquisitions of some of these studios in September, October, November. So to get them, or to expect them to build a game in 6 months is just not realistic, right? Like I'd say I'd urge you guys to have a look online on YouTube, whatever, and just have a look at some of the time required to build some of these games. Now, if a lot of people are looking at the Bored Apes as the gold standard, right? You look at the Bored Apes and you say, hey, okay, they've built the other side. Have they? Have they actually built the other side, the full other side? They're building experiences. They're building those trips. They're building the first trip, the second trip. They're putting together all the building blocks to be able to, but they're trying to build their own developer kit, called the ODK. They're trying to build a number of experiences. They're getting other game builders to wanna build on top of the other side. But that's not going to be ready for a while, right? Look at Sandbox. Sandbox has been building for ages, and the game is not, the game is fun. I love hanging out in the Sandbox, but it's not, it's not ready. It's not ready in its full final form. So with a lot of these games that we're trying to build, and with a lot of these games that will be coming, they do take time. And I'm sorry to say that, right? Like it's just the reality of things. Like now I know the Web3 space moves at 1,000,000 miles an hour, but that hasn't all of a sudden changed how long it takes to build a game. Oh yeah, I mean, like 100%. Like I'm just surprised. Oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like there's definitely 100%. Like every time there's a new experience released, we're like, Torque Squad will be involved somehow. But it's a matter of how, right? And that's at the end of the day like a big kind of strategic decision. Pistol Pete, I touched on early in the AMA the timeline of building a game, the cost involved. Right. So, it's a good example. Let's take something like Forza Horizon, right? Forza Horizon 5. Like, they didn't have to build the game from scratch, first of all. Actually, let's look at something like Forza Motorsport 8, right? Like, when was Forza Motorsport 7, actually? Forza Motorsport 7 came out in 2017. Forza Motorsport 8 is coming out in 2023. So that's taken 6 years. I'm not saying that they've been working on it daily for the last 6 years, but it's still a process that's taken 6 years and probably going to take anywhere from $50 to $100 million. So that's just, I guess that's just an example. Pennies. Yeah. Pocket change. Any other questions? I might jump in to answer a couple of these questions from Chelsea Go. I should drop you guys some rev. Maybe there's something we can do as a rev earning type of thing. I guess ultimately what's, and this is what I'm going to be asked, right? Like, what's the purpose of doing that? 100%. Like, if I could just give you guys all a bunch of rev, 100%, I would do it. I'll make you rich, 100%. Just give you guys a bucket of rev. Sure. No, I get that. To buy a Lambo. Yeah, I mean, 100%. If I could do it, I would. But I'm going to be asked why. All right, from Chelsea. How many people are in the TS team? So core team, there's obviously myself, but like I mentioned before, we have a number of studios, like outsource contractors, effectively that make that work for us or work with us, from design to smart contracts to artwork, stuff like that. So there's I think in the beginning when we had like the full team working, we had around 20-25 people. Now it's probably, I don't know how many individual people they have in the individual teams. But including like the sandbox guys, like sandbox development team, the design team, it's probably about 15 people total, that are still doing work with us. Yeah, I've answered that one. Actually, here's an interesting question, right? And so he asks, social media specialists share between different teams. I hear you there. Social media marketing is something that I think is desperately needed, not just with us. I think across the board, something that we're definitely pushing for. And yeah, I agree 100%. Wow, if TS is part of Rev, how many people are totally now in Rev? Oh, my goodness. I don't even know how to start to answer that. So within the Hong Kong team, the people that are working working in the Hong Kong office. Sorry, I just got distracted. Parab is great at throwing me off. Anyway, how many people are working on Rev in the Hong Kong team? There's around 10 to 15 in the Hong Kong team, maybe more, actually maybe 20, including all the engineers. Then within Grease Monkey, I know they have 40 staff. With Eden Games, they have 80. With Tiny Digital, I think it's maybe 5 or 6. That's maybe more, actually, maybe 10. I think they've got 20 in the company. I think there's like 10 maybe working on Rev Racing. That number, I'm not sure. I haven't spoken to them in a while. With We Play Media, that's a little bit trickier, because that's I know they do a lot of outsourcing. The team building Formula E, I think there's about 10 of them. So it's more engineers than anything else, or the team's just stuffed with managers and decision makers? No. I think there's a couple of core decision makers, but we're definitely not more decision makers than anything else. There's a lot of engineers. If you look at Grease Monkey, I think they have, of their team, there's like 30 or like maybe 25, 20 artists and like 15 engineers or something like that. And or I don't know, I'm getting my numbers wrong. I've had Sony numbers thrown at me. Eden Games are the same. They've got so many guys who are amazing artists, so many guys who are just amazing engineers. I think their weighting is slightly more on the engineering side. I think the Muffin Man, frankly, I think Animoca needs to do something about making entrance to the game user friendly, like a single website rather than 100 that you guys, only know about if you happen to get into the right social circles. People don't know what they don't know, so lots of improvement needed there. Yeah, agree. And it's one of the things that we're trying to do with this website, that we had the prototype for. And like I mentioned before, that's something that's still very much on the Rev radar, and something that, you know, we've kind of all collectively taken this idea and kind of run with it. Not to say like it's not going to be like a Steam or like a Epic Games Store where it's just a launcher and you can just launch all the games. It might be more like it might be a bit more like Netflix, for example. Netflix isn't a great example, but you kind of know what I mean, the difference there. No Netflix and chill, Parab. Rev and chill. Rev and skirt. Maybe we start something new. Oh dear. Actually, here's an interesting one, right? And I do actually want to know what you guys think about it, because Chelsea Go asks, Animoca is a supporter of KYC, and this brings and adds this to their projects. Should we expect KYC in the Torque Squad project? I see this as a big risk. In the future TS project, we'll add KYC to get something, for example, keys. KYC will be very bad. Is kind of the sentiment to that, right? So personally, I'm of two minds. I think KYC, exactly. What's the risk? I think, good point. I think both of you have answered that pretty well, right? So question is, what is the risk? Parab says, pretty stupid to do KYC if it sucks as an experience. So yeah, I think there's kind of two ways to look at it, right? And I think if you take Reddit as an example, and I know they don't do KYC as such, but what Reddit did with their NFT drops allowed anyone to participate in the claiming of their free avatar. Some of them were paid, but I know they really should KYC. You're right. But what they did do is they required people to create a wallet once they wanted to trade or kind of extract any value from them having this avatar. So I think in a similar way, like, for example, I haven't asked the question, so I don't actually know, but I don't know what the purpose was for example, the other side, right? The land sale that Yuga Labs did. I don't fully understand why KYC was required, but what I will say is for something like the other side, people were happily, true, maybe it's because it's US based, that's probably one thing, but also like people were happy to do KYC for the other side. So I agree, like people are more willing, like the propensity to actually go and jump through all the hoops to do KYC is probably much higher if the experience on the other end is valuable, whether it's a valuable time wise, monetary, or whatnot. But yeah, KYC is one that's quite tricky, right? Like, I know with a lot of crypto users and kind of early adopters, still very much like, hey, we're gonna hide behind this um, this avatar and this alias, and anonymity is very synonymous with Web3 and crypto, right? Yeah, that's fair. Ooh, DAO. This is something that I didn't talk about. I do want to talk about the DAO. So the DAO is an interesting one again, because we have this opportunity with a number of these NFTs in our DAO wallet that's effectively owned by you guys to do a number of different things with that. And I had a conversation with a community member, I'm not going to name who, about the DAO. Or if they're happy to say who, go for it. Now the DAO is interesting because the reason we put that together is to have a place to have a number of Torqueys to almost act as a decision-making kind of funding tool. Now, what we can do there is have a number of Torqueys. So let's take the Muffin Man. The Muffin Man wants to set up an initiative that brings Web3 to schools, and wants to start a program to basically teach Web3 to kids, give them something to begin their Web3 journey, like a Torquay, and bring this program and bring in teachers and bring in stuff like that, to to buy all the muffins. And that's obviously going to need funding. So that's potentially a function of the DAO. And it says, okay, you need 100 Torqueys, 150 Torqueys, 200 Torqueys, whatever. Let's say it's 200, to be able to fund this program. Now, the function of the DAO would then be to say, hey, DeMuffin, propose this idea, lay out all the foundations of it, and then as a DAO, we're able to then, and holding one of the Torque squads will be your voting power, right? So as a holder, you then vote on whether or not you think the Muffin's proposal makes sense. Is that something that we want to support as a community? And then if we do, we vote, and the vote goes through, and then he gets his 200 Torqueys to go and fund his muffin shop. So that's one of the purposes of it. So that's something that's still being worked on. It was an early idea that we had, but then over time we haven't really had the DAO's ready. Again, all this stuff's ready. It's all sitting there. You can go into Snapshot and you can go into the Torque Squad DAO and you can have a look. I can't post proposals yet. I mean, you can teach kids tech while feeding them muffins, right? I don't know, or teach them how to make muffins using tech, something like that. So again, the DAO is sitting there; it's ready. It's now a matter of how do we deploy it in the right way. All of this stuff is kind of like, it's like we've built all this infrastructure. It's like, how do we deploy it, right? So that's where we're at. All right, finally, real life events, right? I know this has come up multiple times. So real life events can only be available by a small part of the community. New online utilities are not expected in the coming months. Somewhat true, somewhat not. Depends on what the other studios are building. Based on this, community counts various online games in which there will be an opportunity to earn, for example, Torque Squad NFTs or swap prize. During long lull in new releases, this may be a good plan for the community to participate in online games, marbles, smash cards, others, to have a chance to win Torque Squad. The more Torque Squad you own, the more chances you get a more valuable prize. So this is a good point, right? So I think this is definitely something we should do more of, is to host more game nights, to do more streams, do more, the thing is, how many of you guys here, and I don't know if you can type it in the chat or whatever, but how many of you guys here play something like, no, I'm not going to do a hot tub stream, unfortunately, but like how many of you guys here play something like Fall Guys, or how many of you guys play Fortnite or Smash Cards? I mean, we've played multiple times, but COD Mobile, Dumbmuffin sucks at all the games. So that's a tricky one, right? Like 100%. Like if you guys want to do a games night, easy. We can Mario Kart. We could do Mario Kart. Like easily host a game night for you guys, and love to join in with you guys and play Need for Speed, Forza. See, the thing is, like with some paid games, it's a little bit harder, right? Because does everyone own these paid games? That's the tricky one, right? With something like Fortnite, we can do like private lobbies or Fall Guys. Race Room is free. You're right. Oh, Citrov, yeah, you missed that bit, but yes, it is still happening. I did mention before, like all of this has been put together. Currently it's in a warehouse ready to ship and sell. It's just a matter of kind of getting that together and getting that going. Yeah, I mean the boxes have your face on it, right? So yeah, in terms of online games and utility and like that type of utility, 100% we want to do it. But then the question is like, what will you guys play? And maybe that's a question that we raise. And I do a poll, list out 50 games to see which one we can all participate in and have these game nights. So, all right, I will give this. I mean, we've been going for about almost an hour and a half. And any more burning questions? Because if not, I am going to have to jet skis. Skin routine. Hey, Jesser always knows when to chime in with the gems. Guys, make sure you're drinking water. Stay hydrated. I'm very bad at that. Are you just leaving me hanging? Are you just making me wait? What's in the fashion line? There's a number of things. There's a hoodie. There's a sweater. There are a number of t-shirts. There's sweatpants. I don't know if you're a fan of sweats. Kind of like utility sweats. There's like a kind of like a lightweight, like a windbreaker type thing. We've also got records, the one that we did with Tina Guo and Steve Mazzara. We've got a number of those. Hats we're like slowly running out of because we've been giving some hats away at some events, like we did FinTech, for example. But these, I mean, we can make more hats, 100%. All right, I'm gonna have to end that here, I think. But for those of you guys who what we did yesterday, we did I did on stream. I did I'll like it. All right, drop it in general. I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, marbles on stream. Did marbles on stream yesterday where we played to win tickets for the Formula Drift event. That was cool. That was really cool because we had people from all different communities. We had some from here. We had Formula Drift community. What about rights? Can we play TS music on our websites and games if we own a PFP? Look, we own the music. And we said, you guys get IP rights with your Torque Squad. Go for it. Play the music. I'd say the one thing I would say is if you could either link it, credit it, say something about Tina Guo and Steve Mazzaro, say something about Motiverse and Torque Squad specifically, have a link to the Spotify. We've got 7,000 plays, which is pretty decent. But yeah. Yeah, the Muffin Man, 100%. He needs to join Marbles. Marbles is a lot of fun. Were we supposed to get a hoodie? We're supposed to get something else. And that's currently also being worked on. It's going to be one of those jerseys. Torque Squad jersey. All right. Appreciate you guys. I know there's a lot of people who are not able to make it. Time zones are a butt. So yeah, thank you guys for attending. I'm pretty sure I hit record. Yeah, I have. I've recorded the entire AMA. So maybe I'll put it through some kind of program. AI is fun. Do we like AI? Put it through an AI to get the transcript. And then once we have the transcript, I'll post it somewhere. Or I can post the whole audio thread. But I think it's an hour and 17 minutes. I don't know who's going to be listening to basically a podcast of just me. All rightio. Thank you guys again. I appreciate you all. Thanks for all the support and sticking with me, and sticking with the squad. I think this new chapter of the Torque Squad should be a good one. And like I said, it's a new chapter for Rev. The vibes have been good. I do think things are turning, and I do believe we've just turned a new corner as well. So you love hate me. That's all right. I love hate you too. Thank you guys again. I've said thank you quite a few times now. I'm just gonna wait for the last few messages to come through. You can tell me to go shove it. That's fine. I'll take it. It's all good. The location will not be disclosed. All right, guys. Have a great evening if you're in the US. Have a great day if have a great day. If you're over in Australia, don't know how many of you are. I think all of you guys here are US based, right? I'm not sure. Gee, the Muffin Man, aren't you in SA? I'm not sure. All right, guys. Take care. Lots of love. And we will be chatting again. Oh, you're in America. All right, cool. All right, guys. Take care. We'll speak again soon. Peace.